Imagine yourself standing before a majestic medieval castle. Its walls seem monolithic, and its towers appear timeless. Modern people are used to massive skyscrapers rising in just a year and a half. However, in the Middle Ages, building even a small fortress was the work of a lifetime. Often, the lord who laid the first stone did not live to see the housewarming. The average construction time for a large castle ranged from 20 to 40 years. Let's break down point by point all the difficulties faced by the builders of the past. It all began with choosing the ideal strategic point. Usually, a castle was built on a high cliff or in the bend of a river. Preparing the foundation on rocky ground could take several years of heavy manual labor. Builders had no dynamite, so stones were split using wedges and heavy hammers. Blueprints in the modern sense were a rarity back then. Master builders used wooden models or drew plans directly on the ground in full scale. Every detail of the future castle had to account for the terrain's features. A calculation error at this stage could lead to the collapse of the entire structure 10 years later. The most difficult stage was the extraction and delivery of building materials. Erecting the walls required tens of thousands of tons of high-quality stone. If there was no quarry nearby, blocks had to be transported for dozens of kilometers. The main draft power was oxen, which moved extremely slowly. A single wagon could carry only one or two large blocks at a time. The roads of that era turned into an impassable mess after every rain. In winter, transportation stopped altogether due to snowdrifts and ice. Delivering stone by water was faster, but not every castle stood by a navigable river. In addition to stone, a vast amount of wood was required for scaffolding and floors. Entire forests were felled for a single citadel, and the logs also had to be hauled uphill. This logistical chain was incredibly fragile and expensive. One of the main reasons for the slow pace was the chemistry of the mortar. Medieval builders used a mixture of lime, sand, and water. Unlike modern concrete, lime mortar sets very slowly. It hardens on contact with carbon dioxide, which slowly penetrates the interior of a thick wall. If a wall was built too quickly, the lower layers simply could not withstand the load. Under the weight of the upper stones, the mortar would be squeezed out and the wall would float. Therefore, masons built no more than 2 to 3 meters in height per season. After that, the structure needed time to settle and gain strength. The walls themselves often had a sandwich structure, 2 thin stone shells with infill inside. The internal space was filled with broken stone and poured over with liquid mortar, which took years to dry. The labor force was another factor slowing down the process. 2 groups of people worked on the site: professional stonemasons and common laborers. Masons were the elite. They migrated from one construction site to another across Europe. There was a shortage of them, and lords fought real battles for the best masters. Common laborers were local peasants performing their feudal duties. However, peasants could only work on the site during time free from fieldwork. During sowing and harvesting periods, construction practically ground to a halt. Money was the fuel without which construction stopped instantly. Building a castle cost astronomical sums, comparable to the budget of an entire kingdom. Kings and barons often faced financial crises. If a war began, all funds were redirected to maintaining the army. In such cases, construction could be frozen for 10 or 20 years. Sometimes a castle passed to an heir who had his own architectural plans. This led to alterations, the demolition of old towers, and the construction of new ones. Every such change in concept added years to the total duration of the work. Often, by the time the castle was completed, warfare tactics had managed to change. Lifting heavy loads to a height was a separate engineering challenge. The masters had no electric cranes, only simple mechanisms. Installing every battlement at the top of a tower was a very complex and responsible task. However, the complexity, as well as the financial and time costs, paid off in full. Castles could easily exist for centuries, and many have not crumbled to this day.